and welcome. Today, we're diving deep into a really fundamental question for anyone working in SAP materials management. How does the system actually know what to do with a purchase order once you create it? We're going to break down the classic, super powerful framework that makes it all happen, NAST. So let's start with this. Picture it. You've just created a purchase order. You hit save, and then what? What's the magic that happens behind the scenes? Does it automatically print to a specific printer? Does it fire off an email to the supplier? Or maybe it sends it out via EDI? How does the system make that choice for every single document, every single time? Well, that's exactly the puzzle we're going to solve today. You know, in the world of SAP S4HANA, there are basically two main roads you can go down for output control. On one side, you've got the tried and true method called NAST, which is also known as message determination. It is incredibly flexible and powerful. Then, on the other side, you have the new kid on the block, the modern S4HANA output management. It's designed for the cloud, it's way easier to set up, but it's not quite as customizable. And this choice, well, it's pretty central to how you manage your whole system. So, here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we'll talk about that big choice you have to make in S4HANA. Then we'll properly introduce the classic NAST framework. After that, we'll break down exactly how it works, step by step. Then we'll see it in action with a real-world example. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with your key takeaway. Sound good? Let's go. All right. Section 1, the output control choice. Now, you might be thinking, if there are two options, why are we going to focus so much on the older one? And that's a great question. There is a really, really important reason for it. And here's the answer. Simple as that. For the huge number of companies running SAP S4HANA on-premise, NAST is still the default. It's what's turned on right out of the box. So if you're working in that kind of environment, you absolutely, positively have to understand how NAST works. The newer framework isn't just magically active. You have to choose to use it. So how do you decide which path to take? Well, the logic is actually pretty straightforward. If you're moving over from an older SAP ECC system, chances are you'll just want to stick with the NAST setup you already have. It just makes sense. If you're doing a brand new, fresh implementation, well, then you've got a decision on your hands. But if you're on a cloud version of S4HANA, the system kind of makes a decision for you. The new output management is a default there. Okay, moving on to section 2, let's properly introduce NAST. We're going to break this powerful engine down into its essential parts. I want you to think of these as the Lego bricks that let you build your entire output strategy. So what exactly is message determination, this thing we call NAST? At its core, it's basically a super smart rule engine. The best analogy is a mail sorting facility that knows exactly what to do with every single package. Based on who sent it, where it's going, and what kind of package it is, it automatically routes it perfectly. That's what NAST does for your business documents. It uses a whole set of conditions to figure out the what, where, and how. And these are the key building blocks that make it all happen. You've got message schemas, which are kind of like the master plan for a document. Message types define what you're sending, a PO, an invoice, whatever. Then you have access sequences and condition tables. That's the real heart of the rules engine. And finally, partner roles and printer determination figure out who gets the message and where it physically prints. All of these pieces have to work together. You know, this quote from the source material just hits the nail on the head. It says it all perfectly. The entire point of this whole system is to send out messages based on rules, criteria that you set up beforehand. It's not guesswork. It's a system built for total precision and control. Okay, so we know the components. Now for section 3, how does it all fit together and actually work? Let's follow a single purchase order on its journey from the second you click save all the way to the message being sent out the door. But before we dive into the steps, this is the golden rule. You have to burn this into your brain. If the system can't find a specific, valid rule, what we call a condition record, that matches the document you've just saved, then nothing happens. At least not automatically. That condition record is the trigger for the whole chain reaction. And this diagram just lays it out beautifully. It all starts at step 1. A user saves a document. Immediately, the system looks up the master plan, or the schema, for that kind of document. Then, in step 3, it runs through the access sequence, which is just a fancy way of saying it searches for a matching rule in a very specific order. And then, bam! Step 4, it finds one. It finds a condition record that says, hey, for this supplier, you need to use EDI. Finally, step 5, the system generates that EDI output and puts it in the queue, ready to go. Simple as that.
Theory is great and all, but let's make this real. Let's get into section 4 with a practical example. We're going to look at a super common business scenario and see just how elegantly NAST handles it.
Okay, just look at this table. This is a perfect visual for a real-world requirement. For supplier A, we want every single document, no matter what, to go out via EDI. But for supplier B, things are different. We only want one specific type of purchase order, type ZN, to be sent by fax. And for everybody else, the default is just to print it. This level of specific control is exactly what NAST was built for. So how does the system actually pull off the logic we just saw in that table? It's not some kind of magic. It works because an SAP consultant or administrator went in and created 3 different condition records. There's one specific rule for supplier A, there's an even more specific rule just for supplier B and that one document type, and then there's a very general catch-all rule for everyone else. Each line in that table is brought to life by one of these records. Whew, we have covered a ton of ground. So let's wrap it all up in our final section, Section 5, your key takeaway. If you only remember one thing from our time together today, please make it this. Here it is, the main point. For most on-premise S4HANA systems, Nest is the powerful engine running everything related to message output. It's the default, it's incredibly flexible, and it gives you that fine-grained, granular control to communicate with your suppliers exactly how you want to, all based on a system of specific conditional rules. And that brings us to a final question for you to think about. Now that you see how powerful and flexible SAP can be, if you were starting a brand new on-premise project from scratch today, would you stick with this classic, powerful solution, or would you choose to explore the newer, simpler framework? The right answer, of course, depends entirely on your business needs. And figuring that out is what being a great SAP pro is all about. Thanks so much for joining. All right,